Hi, my name is Phil and I like talking about politics, and in this viewer's choice video I'd like to discuss the prospect of the UK leaving the EU and then wanting to rejoin once people accept what they've actually allowed to happen. But how easy and quick would it be? But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So let's say the UK leaves the EU without a deal this October the 31st, according to Boris Johnson's Halloween wish. The anticipated disaster befalls us, the scales fall off enough eyes to see what's happened, all the lies are exposed, and the people demand a new government. In addition, they demand that we knock on the door of the EU and ask to come back in from the cold. But what would be the difficulties and delays in such a move? First of all, forget any notion of us being quickly allowed back in as if nothing happened, and it won't be out of spite that we will have any delays at all. There are procedures for admitting new members and we will have to be patient. The first thing we'll actually need to do is not reapply for membership at all in the event of a no-deal Brexit. We will be in utter chaos, and that chaos will be rippling out across the wider world. The wider world that we will now have to acknowledge actually exists. Oh, and that wider world? Yeah, it's not going to be best pleased with the chaos that we've unleashed, so we'd better mind our manners. But the first order of duty will be getting ourselves hooked back up to the single market. In fact, to think we'll essentially be talking about adopting the withdrawal agreement, but on a sort of indefinite basis with a view to rejoining at some point in the future. Once we've stabilised the economy, then there will be two major issues to address regarding reapplying for membership. It's the same two basics that apply to any nation that wishes to join, essentially. One, we have to align our standards with those of the EU and decide, what rules we're going to follow. And two, the current member states need to approve our membership. Now, on the first one, you may say that we already have aligned standards, so that should be fine. Well, no, not exactly. We have a number of opt-outs which are spectacularly unlikely to be preserved in the event of a readmission. Let's go through them, shall we? Now, I'm not going to go through every single one, just the ones that would be most in the public mind. The first is that we have a rebate on our membership fees. Yeah, that'll be gone. And considering that the extra fee will be way less than the money our economy will have been hemorrhaging at the time we were out without a deal, I can't imagine there'll be too many complaints about that. Second, we opted out of the euro and involvement with the European Central Bank. Now, despite Brexiteer lies about us propping up the euro, this is not actually true. We have nothing to do with it and are not financially liable for any problems caused with the currency due to more reckless participants. It is almost certain that the EU would wish the UK to adopt the euro as a condition for rejoining the EU. This is likely, of course, to meet resistance within the UK. It'd be nice to think that as a nation, Brexit will have taught us to be a little more worldwide and a whole lot more humble, but I'm not betting on it. Expect national grumbling on this point and it being the cause of significant delay as we prepare to roll it out with all the expense that involves. 3. Schengen is another EU feature that the UK, as well as many other member states, currently opt out of. It is essentially a free movement area within the EU. But don't we already have freedom of movement as a member of the EU? Well, sort of, but not in the way that the Brexiteers described. All this talk, for example, of EU nationals being able to come over here without jobs and be a burden to our welfare system is a myth. A number of EU member states exercise control over who can come to their countries, even from other EU nations, and live and work. The UK chooses not to exercise these controls because, far from being full of migrants, we simply don't have enough to power our economy. The more, the better. But Schengen is real freedom of movement. I'd also imagine that this would be on the list of expected compliances on a membership form. Essentially, we have opted out of a number of EU initiatives because we were in a strong position to do so. That's how it is with negotiating anything, even on a personal level. If you present a lot of desirable skills to a prospective employer and you are in demand within your industry, you can command a better salary and conditions than if you are desperate for the job. The UK was powerful and could command special conditions. Our international standing has already taken a nosedive. This is evident from the number of international committees where we no longer hold a seat. In the event of leaving the EU without agreement, our position will be extremely vulnerable. And joining the EU does involve negotiating along the Copenhagen criteria framework, for example. That means it is possible to obtain certain opt-outs upon joining. So there's nothing certain about what we'd have to change in order to rejoin. However, the idea that we'd rejoin on the same terms as we are as a member now, that seems to be a complete fantasy to me. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if we had to go for full regulatory alignment, including adopting the metric system in full at long bloody last. Technically, you're supposed to adopt all EU laws to become a member. At the moment, we don't. We should, but we don't. I doubt that will be overlooked upon rejoining. But it's not just about aligning standards and adopting systems, though this would still take years. It's also about getting agreement from existing member states. I imagine most would be fine with it, but I might add with the proviso of having learned our lesson and resolving not to cause trouble anymore. But if we come crawling back, I think that will be a given. We simply won't be making the move whilst any stubbornness remains. But there will be sticking points still. Spain will want to have a word or two about Gibraltar. I suppose it's possible that more powerful member states might slap them down if it became the only point of contention, as they did for the Article 50 negotiations, I suppose. But this time other member states may wish to see the UK taken down another peg or two. Finally, we'd need a huge change in our senior politicians if Brexit happens. If it does, it will be entirely down to the leadership of both the Conservatives and Labour. The leadership of either one of these parties can kill this off before it happens. They could have already done so, in fact. Brexit can only happen with the will of both, which means that both must want it for it to happen. So we will require a complete sea change on not only public thinking, but also political thinking. So the delays would come down to these main areas. 1. We need to get the approval of member states. Some of them may demand things that we are not willing to give. 2. We need the country to fundamentally change its thinking regarding the EU. This may not be as quick as some imagine. 3. We need to negotiate the terms of our re-entry. This could involve major delays if it involves accepting conditions that do not currently apply, such as on currency or border issues. And 4. We have to implement all necessary systems before becoming a full member. How long this takes depends on how many new features we must adopt and how much we have diverged after leaving in the first place. So don't imagine that the process would be quick or easy. We could easily be talking a decade, maybe a whole generation if it takes us a long time to learn lessons. And bear in mind that the very influential press and Conservative Party will push the narrative all the way that the sunlit uplands are just around the corner. Just be patient and Brexit will turn out great. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.